Happy Friday, ladies. Thank you for joining us today for the AIME Women's Mortgage Network's Growth Series. This series is here for you to educate, inspire, and share your progress as we lift each other up. On today's episode, we are going to discuss how we can serve our veterans by understanding how to communicate effectively, how to market so you can provide value, and how you can serve them by offering the best VA loan program. Let's meet our panelists. From Nevada, we have Elena Boland, a loan officer at Wholesale Mortgage Services. From New Mexico, we have Kim Cassane, a broker owner at Premier Mortgage Advisors. And all the way from Hawaii, early this morning, we have Stephanie Safholm, a loan officer at Bayview Residential Brokerage. Ladies, we are thrilled to have you with us today, and we look forward to listening and learning from you. Okay, we need to start at the beginning. I have been on calls with the VettedVA team, and I am always so impressed at how well they communicate with our veteran families. So I think before we can discuss loan options, we need to start by speaking their language and making them feel comfortable. So Elena, can you share with all of our viewers what's the best way to communicate with our veteran families?
I just wanted to make it clear that communication is so important in every loan category, but to dive into the VA category, it's a different type of communication. And it's really great to just kind of prep yourself so that you're not afraid of VA loans, because communication being the most important part is a different animal for veterans. And that's because you have to understand who your customer is, who your client is, just like you would with, again, any loan program. So I always recommend by starting to look at the acronyms that veterans use. For example, if they're active duty, you don't really want to ask them for a pay stub. It's best to ask them for an LES, because that's the acronym that they use for a pay stub. And I know that's one small example, but there's lots of things that you can do. You can literally just Google military acronyms. And I know that not everything is going to apply to what we're communicating with them on, but it's best to look at something simple like the military alphabet acronyms, because I mean, I am full on guilty of saying, Apple, Beta, Cat, and then they laugh at me. But it's something that I'm working on, because after all this time, I feel like, gosh, you know what? I should know this a little better, even after 15 years. So that's another thing that you can definitely look up and work on. I always also recommend looking at what military bases are around you. Because if somebody says, I'm PCSing, I'm relocating to this base, you want to know where your guys are going. You want to know what community they're going to be looking in. I know exactly what they are all around me. And it really just helps me educate the veteran on, even though I'm not the realtor, here's the price point for the neighborhood you're looking in, to be within an hour of your base so that you're close by your family and you don't have a long commute. All of those things are so important by just providing that little bit of value by knowing what you're talking about for everything that applies to them. I think that
is so on point, because what you're doing is number one, you're investing and you're caring about the community that you're looking to serve. And that's really, truly where it starts, right? It's not just, okay, this is a loan program. Even with what you just said, if someone is making a move, you're trying to go that extra step to provide them with some insights and some information about that, because listen, it's scary. And we all know that when you're moving around and you have a family, that's a whole nother layer that goes into this. So go ahead, keep going.
Right, absolutely. And that's a great touch point to keep going on, is you think about one of the top 5 most stressful things to happen to anyone. Guess what is on the list? It's moving. And these guys have to move a lot, and we need to be there for them and coach them through the things that they need to do. No matter if this is their first VA loan or their 5th, you have to be able to help them navigate things the best way that helps them, and to teach them, that things may be different state to state. Because if they're coming from Florida into Nevada, I've got to show them, that maybe property taxes work differently and that may affect their house payment. and ultimately affect their budget. So those are things that you need to be ready to, help any relocating family on at the ready quickly. And then also knowing that most of them are not here. Typically as a local mortgage broker, we're helping people in our neighborhoods, in our community. With veterans, it's very different. You're going to be on FaceTime, you're going to be on Zoom, you're texting. They're going to be in Afghanistan, 12 hours difference. Well, you need to help them adjust to their time frame, and that's part of our job. We're different because we're brokers. So be different and adapt to their time frame and be okay with helping them. And maybe you're going to work late, but think about how much you're providing for them by just doing those little things in that way of communication. It's so invaluable to them. And if you can just get that part squared away, you're helping them complete this mission. Everything to a veteran is a mission, and they have a goal, and getting them to that end goal and completing that mission is so important to them. And if you do that for them, I see it every time. They are the most thankful. And then thankfully in the loan process, I find that they are the most organized, the most respectful, and I honestly enjoy working with them because of that. They're a joy, and it makes me just want to share that information so that if anybody's feeling afraid of VA loans because you've heard from some old school loan officers that they're hard, you get your communication down and the rest will come. And I know the girls, Kimberly and Stephanie, are going to talk on the next steps, but those things will come as you study. You get your communication down first and you will succeed, and your veterans will thank you and they will talk about you. And it will be honestly a lifelong relationship with those veterans. I honestly have many, many friends for veterans that I've served, and I feel so proud of that. And I honestly sometimes get emotional about it when they call me 2 years later and we had our baby, and I'm like, oh my God. It's just a great thing to be able to participate in and think about all the things that they do for our country and our communities, and on small and big scales. So that communication part with them will come back to you tenfold if you just invest in that little bit of research and knowing how to properly talk to them. I think that you'll be successful and get away from that fear.
Yes. Well, you give great insights. And I will tell you, it does start with that communication piece. And you even said it. I mean, Elena, you said it perfectly of you're helping them accomplish their mission. Now think about that, right? You mentioned that it's one of the most stressful things in our lives is when you're moving, when you're making that change. We need them to be able to know that they can focus on their family and protecting our country and doing what they need to do, and let the mortgage broker take over that level of having the trust in them to know they're going to take care of this piece. And that's where you guys do such an amazing job. Be different. Go above and beyond. Take that next level and communicate with them because you're accomplishing that mission. Great job, Elena. Okay, now we're ready to go to step 2. All right, so now we've done our research. We know the lingo. We understand, yes, we're going to go with that next step of getting them comfortable with what area, right? We're also FaceTiming, where we understand the time zone differences, and we're diving into this. So now, Kim, now that we've done this research, how are we connecting with our veterans now that I understand how to communicate?
All right. So in terms of outreach in the community, if you're looking to build on, gaining more veteran clients, yes, you have the generic ways of posting things on your website, your social media. For me, I really start within the community. What can you do to give back to the community? If you think about veterans, they serve others. So a lot of our retired veterans, they take jobs at the police department, the fire department. So are you, doing local outreach and building those relationships within the community that are service related? A lot of veterans that I meet are in our fire department and our police department. So we do co-sponsor events with them, take them lunch. Other things that we have done, just like Elena had mentioned, is knowing your bases, the bases around you and your surroundings. Here in New Mexico, our Air Force Base, they put on family-oriented events. So we always try to sponsor and be in that event. So previous to COVID, right, there was, a harvest festival, and we had a booth there that gave back, and we were within the community of just doing things. They always do a summer event for the families on the base. And so we find ourselves trying to outreach to our local bases. You can, yes, sometimes there's a cost. I've been able to come in, and on our local base, they do once a month. Yes, there's a membership kind of fee that you have to go in to help sponsor these events and the lunches that go into it. But members that are veterans that are locating or relocating to the Kirtland Air Force Base here have to come and do a meeting. And they, we have vendors all set up that they can come and ask different questions about housing or bank accounts or schools. And so, finding out with your local base, if there's anything that they do that you can plug into, whether it be part of their newsletter or just providing information to the veterans that are on base housing that have yet to relocate, if you're looking to, drive more connections with our veterans here local. Other things for me is by referral. Once you build the trust of your veteran, like Elena said, they will tell everybody, because they're very committed clients, and they want all of their veterans and all of the people they know to have the same service level and the same treatment to get to their end goal. So we focus a lot on by referral only. But if you're new and you've never done anything with veterans, and you want to break into that, then I say you start with the local post. You start with your fire departments, your police departments, very service oriented chapters in our community, and try to start outreaching there and give back and work side by side with them, because naturally you will get to know them and business will come. And it's more of an organic type of marketing versus just hardcore Facebook ads.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And we use that word trust, right? We use that word trust. We use that word loyalty. And I think, when you look at our veteran community, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the expert. They're looking for the person that they can trust and create a bond. And, that's how they work, right? They work in tandem together with their team. And they want to find that right mortgage broker that is going to invest some time and effort into them. And like you said, yes, it's great to offer, we help the veterans and out there on social media. And that's great. It's good to inform them, and it's great to inform them of different programs, but there's looking for that connection. Yeah. and that trust. And that's where it goes back to speaking in their language and understanding what it's like to be a veteran family. Or it's not, maybe they're not on active duty. Maybe they're retired. Maybe like you said, it's that understanding, because it is different. But when you take the time to understand and listen, you can certainly serve and give back to them. Absolutely. Wonderful. Great stuff, Kim. Thank you for that advice. All right, Stephanie. Now we're diving into, we've communicated. We've now put ourselves out there. We have our great connections. We now have our veteran families that we're going to serve. Now let's dive into making sure that we provide them with the best information. We ask the right questions, and we prepare that pre-approval or loan file so that we can give them a smooth, great transaction. Dive in.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, the first thing I want to say is, even for people who all we do is VA loans, and 80% of my business is VA loans, another 10% is veterans who are using their, their conventional loan. They're not using their VA loan. And I was trained in VA loans to begin with. So, I get the rare conventional loan. I'm like, but, I find I like VA loans because they, to me, you know your guidelines and you move forward. However, the thing I'm grateful for is when I was trained on VA loans, I had a team. I worked at a retail branch that was VA specific retail branch, and I had a team to ask questions to all the time. If you're a broker, and especially if you're working from a home office, you may not have that team around. You have to build that team of people you can call or email questions to. So my first tip would be find those people that you can ask questions to. I mean, I call colleagues every day to ask questions to, and there's colleagues that call me. So that would be my first tip. We don't know all the answers on a VA loan, and don't pretend that you do, because like Melissa and Elena were talking about communication, one way to, not make yourself look very good is to say that you know the answer when you don't. So please ask questions. My second piece of advice would be to join what I call a VA support group, like VettedVA for professionals only. Get on there and ask the questions that you need so that other people can learn from those questions too. Another piece of advice, do you know where the VA handbook, lender handbook is, right? It's on the VA website. And do you know how to search for it? There's also different chapters with different dates. Some of them are more recent. So you make sure you look at the most recent one. Know how to search it though. That's the most important thing. None of us have memorized the whole entire handbook. It's impossible. There's also circulars that come up on a semi-regular basis. And when I worked at a retail branch, I had a manager who would update us on those circulars. If you're an independent mortgage broker, you're going to have to go in and update yourself on that information, or be in a group that updates us, which is nice too. Also know your lender-specific VA overlays, right? The guidebook is not the gold standard. I mean, it's the gold standard, but then you got your lender overlays. Please do look at those. They're very important for VA loans. Like Melissa and Elena mentioned, know your own area. What VA issues arise in your own area? Let me give you an example. In Hawaii, we have something called the CPR condo, condo property regime. They look like single-family homes, but they are actually condos. And for VA purposes, they're condos, and they have to be VA approved. I have to explain to every PCSing active duty service member that they have to be careful and look out for this, and not to be surprised. So know your area well. So those are kind of just my tips, but I also have a small, it's a little list, a list of things. Do you know how to do it? And if you don't know how to do this, learn how to do it. Ask for help if you don't know how to do it. And we are going to be providing this list in the files sometime in the next day. So if you don't have time to write it all down, that's okay. We will provide the list. Okay, here's my rapid fire list of things you should know how to do if you are going to originate VA loans. Okay. Do you know how to pull a certificate of eligibility from the VA website? And do you know what may be required once you pull? They may ask for additional documentation. Do you know how to read a certificate of eligibility? This is really important. You don't want to give a pre-approval letter without having looked at the certificate of eligibility. And do they have entitlement to use the VA loan? Do you know how to calculate remaining entitlement from a COE? Do you know how to calculate residual income when the DTI is over 41%? That's really important for a VA loan, especially for the lower income borrowers. Do you know how to read an LES and understand the different military pay? Very important, because you do not want to accidentally put pay that's not continuous in your DTI. Do you know how to look up if a condo is VA approved? Very important. Is in Hawaii, about half of my loans are condos. Do you know the different categories of VA approval for VA condos and what they mean, right? Approved with conditions, approved without conditions. Do you know how to look up the military pay on the military websites? And we are going to have a list of websites that you should have bookmarked. Do you know how to calculate the VA funding fee? And do you know the different categories? And do you know the difference between VA disability and VA retirement, and what documentation is needed if your client has one of those income? So that's just my quick list. It's not comprehensive, and we will have more on the list when you see it in our files. So
that is wonderful. That is wonderful. And Stephanie, it's so important. And everything that all of you have provided is, we all want to serve our veterans. We are hands down, we all agree with that. Mm-hmm. But we shouldn't treat it just like any other type of transaction. We do need to do our homework, We need to have our websites bookmarked. We have to know what we're looking at. And we need to have the proper resources to ask questions, because it's impossible to always keep up on every little thing. And good point, Stephanie. Lenders vary in terms of if they have overlays on those particular guidelines. So it might not, depending on who you're working with, it could change. So those are all good things we all want to provide to our realtors, and make sure that if we're giving a pre-approval, we've done our homework, we know that they're solid, and be there for them. So you ladies are absolutely incredible. I love the way we separated this into the different things. Is there any final piece of advice to everyone out there that you're like, be careful of this, watch for that? What piece of advice? Let's, Alina.
Just to touch on something that Stephanie just mentioned, know the difference in your active versus retired veterans. Very different paperwork, very different animal. That's a local versus remote buyer or client. Just know the difference. That's one of the first questions you should ask up front in your communication piece.
Awesome. Kim.
Ooh, let's see. So for me, I think that there's a lot of negativity with realtors sometimes about VA loans and extra fees. You need to advocate for those veterans, because there's really not any extra fees. And so if you know what's allowed and not allowed, it's a very, very simple explanation. And I have never lost a house when I've explained to the realtors that VA loans are not more expensive and they are guaranteed and they will close, because there is a lot of negativity out there. So educate your realtors as well and get them to back your veterans, because you will see sometimes a little bit of adversity there, and you just need to educate them. And once they know it, and you educate, everything works out well.
So very good point. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is vital. So what do you recommend doing with that? Okay. Even before you actually have a veteran family, like, do you have a recommendation of how to work with your realtors to educate them to where they're not, looking at a VA transaction differently?
Yeah, so a lot of my realtors, thank goodness, are veterans, so they don't normally discriminate them, which is really good. But the ones that are not, we try to either go into their office, or we'll give a presentation and talk about how do you handle if the seller says, I don't want to work with a veteran because I hear that I have to pay all these fees. And we normally say, well, what fees are they chatting about? Because really, if you know the non-allowable and you can't have over 1% in total fees, which most brokers do not charge their veteran any fees. So we never run into this issue. So if you can sit down and meet with their team, meet with their staff, and talk about all the benefits, and actually talk about how VA loans can be actually less expensive on a seller, and they're guaranteed, and they're normally very, very secure transactions that will close well over a first-time home buyer loan, right? They normally feel a lot more comfortable. So we tend, if we start seeing a VA transaction, or if I even have, for instance, I have a realtor right now I've never worked with, and they're serving my veteran. I went on a phone call with them and said, hey, what do you know about VA loans? Are you comfortable with them? Are you non-comfortable with them? Is there anything that makes you nervous? Here's what you need to say if you get some pushback from the seller. So, and then, remember, you might not, I've never worked with this realtor, but now she's in my space. She has to talk to me, right? We have a client. So use that 30 minutes of a transaction or whatever and educate them, so that they, when they have the next veteran go on, to help them, even if it's with you or without you, so that they know going forward that it's a great loan and it's not scary.
Absolutely. That is great. And that's a really good recommendation of take that opportunity. Listen, we're always speaking about how do we grow our business and our relationships, right? There's a perfect example of you're not just, okay, we're going through a transaction together. You're educating, you're building that bond, again, that trust, that expertise. So that's wonderful advice. Thank you. All right, Stephanie, what's that last piece of advice that you want to share?
I would say let's not forget about, yes, the veterans and the retired folks. Here in Hawaii, we also have a large population of veterans, and a lot of them work for the Department of Defense, DoD, at the bases. But they have a little bit slightly different needs than someone who is PCSing. They're probably are living here. They may have purchased before, but you still need to know your lingo. They still operate on military lingo, and they may have other properties that are owned. So, if they're a veteran, you do have to really do your due diligence and know if they have remaining entitlement and all of that important stuff that you should be asking in the very beginning. But I really do, enjoy working with my veteran clients too, and my active duty clients. So.
Absolute great advice. That COE is so vital. That is definitely one to keep a watch on and make sure you understand it fully. Well, ladies, you have provided such great insights. Thank you for kind of breaking it down. And we all need to serve our veterans. We know that that's important, but it's not just serving them by doing the transaction. It's investing the time and building the trust and being an expert. Thank you for everything that you're doing to provide that to our veterans and for everything that you do daily. All right, guys. Wishing everyone a wonderful weekend. And on next week's show, we're having a panel discussion where we are actually going to discuss expecting a baby and maternity leave as a mortgage broker. So that should be interesting. So till then, everyone have a wonderful weekend and a great upcoming week.
Bye, guys.